Hello and welcome to a very early start here at London's Heathrow. Guys, today you join me at Heathrow's Terminal 4, where I'm going to be flying with Qatar Airways in their Airbus A380 across to Doha. For years, this has been one of their flagship products, and it'll be great to see how they're getting on board in 2023. So let's get checked in and let's get on our way to Doha.
Well, it was a brutally early start on that particular day, and that certainly didn't prepare me for what was awaiting me at Heathrow. Guys, if you are departing with Qatar Airways out of Heathrow's Terminal 4, first thing in the morning, be aware there are 2 flights checking in. So it's incredibly busy. The 2 aircraft operating are a 777 and an A380. So you can only imagine just how many people were trying to check in on that particular day. The way they had the check-in working is that they had a bit of a pre-queue where you went through, got checked in if you hadn't already done so, and printed your boarding passes. From there, you were then allowed through to the second queue, which is when you then queued to drop the bag off. From a cumulative point of view, it was really quite a long and very onerous experience, and certainly not one of the best check-in experiences I've had. Despite status, it didn't really help.
Very busy times here at London's Heathrow. It was a couple of flights that they were checking in for, so yeah, that was a bit of a nightmarish check-in, probably one of the worst I've experienced in recent years. Anyway, next up, security.
With check-in absorbing around an hour, I was really relieved to see that fast-track security was available to people with One World status Sapphire and above, so we're straight through just then. In terms of the economy experience within Terminal 4, there's a really good range of different restaurant options, whether you're looking for something a little bit cheaper or indeed a bit more of a sit-down experience. On that particular day, it's worth pointing out, again, if you have One World status Sapphire and above, you can access the Qatar Airways Frequent Flyer Lounge. It's a little bit different to their business and first class lounge at Heathrow, not quite as good, but I have to say it was a really nice experience. With this being an economy review, I won't labour this in any great detail. You can check out a full lounge tour in the description below when that one comes available. That being said, in no time at all, it was then time to head to the aircraft and get boarded. By the time that I arrived at the gate, the boarding process was already nicely underway. I do have to say Qatar Airways do manage this in a particularly nice fashion. Just onboarding onto the aircraft, seats on the main deck laid out in a 3-4-3, but we are going upstairs where the layout is slightly less dense.
So transiting to the upper deck just now. Did a really long video on this a few months ago out of Bangkok, so I'm gonna put that one down in the description below so you can check that one out in your own time. But for now, let's jump up and we can check it out.
Sadly, by the time that I arrived in the upper deck, there was already quite a number of passengers up there. The video there that I alluded to was taken in Bangkok. I got about a minute or 2 to myself on the upper deck on that particular occasion, so I was able to film an awful lot of shots. So if you are keen to see a little bit more of what goes on up here, definitely check that one out. In summary, from an upper deck point of view, this is definitely the area to sit if you can. The seats here are laid out in a 2-4-2, so just having that twin by the window, it's certainly one that I would recommend. Having that additional storage just down to the side really is a very nice feature indeed. Although these seats are slightly older generation just now, they still have in-seat charging, a huge amount of room, and also overhead air vents and individual lighting. When it comes to travelling economy around the world, for my money, this is still my absolute favourite way to do it, of course, aboard the Qatar A380. As we make our way out towards the departure runway, guys, a quick plug for the channel. I should say that I've got so much more content from Qatar Airways and so many other airlines across the channel. So if this sort of content is your thing, hit that subscribe button and YouTube will certainly recommend it to you a little bit more frequently. Although thankfully it is becoming a little bit more common now, I'm a huge fan of those external camera views. They're all the bit more special on the A380. Seeing that huge thing take to the skies never fails to amaze. As we make our way out then towards the departure point, I'm gonna slightly bring down the music so you can enjoy what was a really impressive takeoff on that particular day. Well, I'd certainly be lying if I mentioned that we have weather quite this good departing the skies of Britain every single day, so you've definitely got to make the most of it when it is this good, and boy did it lead to such a pretty departure as we've pushed back and left Heathrow on that particular morning. Getting settled into the flight, first things first, well, let's talk entertainment. In terms of entertainment screens, these screens were slightly older generation across Qatar Airways. They still functioned, however, really very nicely indeed. In terms of the content, their entertainment system is right the way the same across the board, and it's packed full of really decent content, and it certainly kept me nicely entertained on this short hop from Heathrow over to Doha. As part of the entertainment offering, you also get a headset. In terms of economy headsets, obviously they're not going to be the best. These are probably one of the better ones that I've seen anywhere in the world. They've got a slight feeling of quality to them, and overall they really weren't too bad. There was also Wi-Fi on this particular flight. Given the slightly older nature of the 380 in their fleet, this wasn't in line with some of the Wi-Fi that I've reviewed a little bit earlier in the year, for example alongside their 777. That said, the hour free of messaging is a really nice touch, and the other packages weren't too expensive. It was just the caps on them that was perhaps a little bit tight. Given the very early start, I took full advantage after the takeoff to have a quick nap before the breakfast service. You'll find a decent sized pillow. There was then also a blanket. Blankets in economy can sometimes resemble, well, cardboard. These actually really weren't too bad at all. The quality was decent, and I did manage to get a little sleep before the service then started coming around. Now, in terms of the service, straight in front of you, you've got the tray table. This can fold out either halfway or full way. I do quite like this feature. It does give you the ability to be able to have a drink on your tray table and still move out of the seat. In terms of the onboard menu on this flight, given the very early departure, as previously mentioned, breakfast was to be the main service of the day, you could say. There was then also a light snack shortly before landing in Doha. That's typically the way in which economy flights going down these days, with a main service and then a small service that follows thereafter. Anything for up to a medium to even longer routes, that's for sure to be said. Certainly in terms of beverages, Qatar Airways do very well here indeed. Their menu really does resemble something more similar to a premium economy service with other airlines. More premium liqueurs such as Baileys and whatnot are also available, so top marks to them certainly from a menu point of view. When the food arrived, I'd actually gone for the pancakes. Now, a little bit of a left field choice, certainly in terms of the presentation from Qatar Airways in economy, as ever, absolutely fantastic. I really like the see-through pots. They've got a slight feeling of quality and class about them. The meal tray is really quite nicely put together as well. In terms of the presentation of the breakfast itself, as you kind of expect in economy, this probably wasn't the absolute best looking meal that you've ever seen. That said, looks can so often be deceiving, and actually the taste was really very good indeed. So for a bit of a sweeter option, something top marks just here. One thing with Qatar Airways that I do really like is, again, those little touches of quality that you get. Yes, it's still plastic cups, but actually with a slight quality in the design about them. So yeah, really nice and a decent breakfast service overall. Throughout the breakfast service, we were absolutely spoiled by some gorgeous views back over the Austrian Alps. That's Salzburg just down there, and certainly a place well worth visiting. As part of my little walk around the cabin, I got the chance to check out the toilets. These were suitably very glitzy, in line with Qatar's design. Nice and clean throughout the flight, and certainly as roomy as you can expect from an economy bathroom. Back at the seat, a few hours later, there was then also a snack service shortly before starting our descent down into Doha. I actually went for the vegetarian option. This was the one recommended on that particular day. It was to be the tomato and basil pizza slice. It was really pretty decent. As I say, don't get onto these flights too hungry. However, guys, the food offering isn't absolutely huge, so do be aware of that if you are one to really enjoy tucking into lots of food during a flight. Overall with Qatar Airways, very much a best-in-class economy experience with them. The crew, as ever, were absolutely fantastic, and they do such a good job on behalf of the airline. No real downsides on this particular flight. A380s could potentially do with a bit of a facelift in the years to come, but I don't think they'll be in the fleet much longer, in line with the airline's ambitions to retire them really as quickly as possible. Otherwise, really hope that you enjoyed this particular video. If you're flying with Qatar Airways in economy, and it's going to be on the 777. You can check out my recent review of that just now in the bottom left. If you fancy going a little bit more expensive perhaps with them, I've also recently reviewed their business class on board their Dreamliner, and you can check that out just now in the top left hand side. Otherwise, guys, really hope this video was useful. Looking forward very much so to welcoming you to another one on the channel real soon.